Hello and a very warm welcome to World Panorama, a weekly roundup of major global events. I am Sana Khan. Before we bring you detailed reports, here's a look at the top stories this week. Thaw in Indo-Pak ties after Pak Army chiefs call for demilitarization of Siachen Glacier. India welcomes General Kayani's call but with caution. Tension escalates in the Korean peninsula after South Korea tests ballistic missile. Pyongyang threatens to wage war against Seoul. Fears of sectarian strife rise after a series of bomb attacks in Iraq. Several killed, over 100 people injured in the deadly blasts. And Bahrain unrest intensifies ahead of the Formula One Grand Prix. Security tensions mount for authorities. Those were the top stories this week. Our focus in this episode is the latest statement from Pakistan's General Ashfaq Parvez Kayani, who called for the demilitarization of the Siachen Glacier. General Kayani's call for a resolution to the Siachen dispute evoked a guarded response in the Indian establishment. Do Pak Army chief's remarks indicate a change in the hostile mindset of the Pakistan Army towards India? Or do they indicate a definitive desire of the Pakistan Army for a thaw in Indo-Pakistan relations? What about the Indian response? Should India welcome this statement and look forward for talks? To get a better understanding on this issue, I'm pleased to have Dr. Matthew Joseph from the Jamia Millia Islamia University with me in the studio. Thanks so much, sir, for joining me here. Before I get to him, here's a look at a detailed report.
Tragedy of the worst kind can change mindsets. And that's exactly what is happening as far as the Siachen Glacier is concerned. In a rare call, Pakistan's Chief of the Army Staff, General Ashfaq Kayani, has called for a peaceful resolution to the Himalayan glacier dispute with India. In a statement just days after a deadly avalanche left 128 Pakistani soldiers buried under thick snow near the highest battlefield in the world, General Kayani has urged for the demilitarization of the Siachen Glacier.
It is for the leadership, both military and the political, to find a resolution. The soldier, this is a duty to defend the country, so he's sitting there regardless of the hardships. You would not have heard somebody sitting on 2,300 feet without oxygen and without any proper heating arrangement. And they've endured for a number of years. That's his job. That he'll continue to do. That's my job. I'll continue to do that. But of course, we hope and we wish that the issue is resolved so that both the countries don't have to pay their cost.
The statement has been welcomed by India, though with a lot of caution.
I'm glad that our neighboring country Pakistan is also realizing the challenges. It does definitely take an economic toll. This money can be better spent on the development of both countries.
Pakistan and India invest significant resources in maintaining a military presence on the Siachen Glacier. But the tragedy has sparked a lively debate about the human and financial cost of defending an uninhabitable patch of snow and rock.
Both the countries can establish the fact on paper and agree to demilitarize Siachen Glacier.
It is estimated that the dispute over Siachen has claimed more than 8,000 lives on both sides of the border since its beginning in 1984. Of that number, less than 1,000 died in fighting opposing forces, while the rest were killed by extreme weather conditions in the region. India and Pakistan both spend hundreds of millions of dollars on maintaining troops on the glacier. Money, critics say, that could be diverted to the public welfare if the dispute is settled.
With that, let me go across to Dr. Joseph. Dr. Joseph, you've seen this report. Now, this issue is much larger. Now, is India supposed to see General Kayani's statement in a positive light, given the history these two countries have had?
Right now, there is a agreement between India and Pakistan based on 2003 understanding between these two countries. There's a kind of ceasefire thing with regard to Siachen. But India should welcome, India has very rightly welcomed officially Pakistan Army General statement on Siachen, the demilitarization of Siachen, and withdrawal of troops of both the countries from Siachen. But we have to take it with a pinch of salt. For what purpose suddenly Kayani is saying this? That is much more important.
Right.
To me, what happened on 7th of April, that around 130 Pakistani soldiers were killed in the avalanche. And that has created immense amount of disappointment in that region, in the immediate vicinity of Siachen area.
That's right.
Apart from that, in overall Pakistan also, people are not very happy with that development. And they are also thinking about, why we are basically engaging this kind of a military standoff with India. So it is time for us to, withdraw unilaterally. Even Nawaz Sharif has gone to the extent of saying that Pakistan should unilaterally withdraw
But then
from...
they made another statement. They said that Pakistan will not withdraw their troops unilaterally unless India does so.
But Nawaz Sharif's statement reflects the general mood of sensible people, a section of political class in Pakistan. So in order to address that, Kayani has to say something, so he has said that. By this, he is sending messages to India, to the international community that Pakistan is willing to, withdraw its troops, provided India also reciprocate to that. At the same time, we should keep that in mind, that Pakistan has been saying this for quite some time. There are some issues between India and Pakistan. That is why this is not happening. Unless and until those conditions are met by Pakistan, for India, it would be very difficult to leave the strategic advantage at the moment India has in the context of Siachen.
Right. Also, we talked about what Nawaz Sharif said as far as this demilitarization of the Siachen Glacier is concerned, but again, it reflects just the general mood of the Pakistanis, but makes absolutely no strategic sense.
Strategic sense in the sense that, people claim, people related to, military affairs, they claim that, occupying Siachen will give some strategic advantage either to India or to Pakistan. But from a layman's point of view, it is a place nobody can live. It is completely inhospitable kind of a place. Right. And there is a saying, some very interesting comment on this conflict is that two bald men fighting for a comb. So that is a comment made by some very interesting observer on this particular issue. So for a layman, for the layman's point of view, this is a struggle or conflict which is of no use, no sense, doesn't make any sense. So it is better to withdraw troops for both the countries from this area and channelize that money, huge amount of money, to developmental activities in the immediate vicinity of that area also will help people a lot. So that's a general thinking in India as well as in Pakistan. So it is getting reflected in these kind of statements, that's all.
So perhaps the importance of Siachen is being over-exaggerated over a period of time. There have also been talks, some people say that maybe a third party should intervene. Maybe the UN should intervene into this matter. I
think India and Pakistan should not allow any third party to intervene this kind of a tension. India and Pakistan are countries which are mature enough to resolve conflicts between themselves. So in the height of conflicts also, we always tend to maintain that kind of relations between each other. So I think at this moment, we should not invite any outside powers to resolve this kind of a conflict, which will clearly tell the people outside that these two countries are not capable of resolving their own problems.
Right. My last question to you would be, what do you see in the future? Because in the recent past, we've seen India and Pakistan sort of coming closer together. So the timing of this statement, do you think they can go somewhere on this issue?
Right now, there is a bond homie developed between India and Pakistan that we can see in the case of India-Pakistan trade discussions. And recently, India has gone a step ahead by saying that Pakistanis are welcome to have their investments in India. Pakistani FDI is welcome in India. So that is a step forward in that direction, right direction. And Kayani's statement is basically, one can interpret in that manner also. If we take it positively, it can further that step which India has taken, and these countries can come together and discuss and resolve this crisis. Many a time, we have come across a kind of resolution. Something has happened in between, and then we were not able to reach a conclusive agreement between these two countries. That is the issue. Right now, there is a situation created Pakistanis are also
Right.
feeling like that. So we should actually try for a resolution of this nonsensical conflict between India and Pakistan over a piece of, ice.
Right. Dr. Joseph, thanks so much for joining me here on the show this week, and thanks so much for those words. So a sense that we get is there is scope for India and Pakistan to move together after this tragedy that we've seen, which has sort of brought the two nations closer to talks, discuss this issue in a bigger way, and perhaps to find a resolution for it. With that, it's time for a very short break, but lots more up ahead. A detailed report on the Agni 5 ICBM that was launched by India. China has reacted on it as well. Thanks for staying with us. North Korea demanded on Thursday that South Korea apologize for what it called insults during major anniversary festivities or face a sacred war, as Seoul unveiled a new missile to deter its neighbor. Regional tensions have risen since Pyongyang went ahead with a long-range rocket launch last Friday, defying international calls to desist. Adding to the tension, South Korea deployed a new long-range cruise missile that puts nuclear and missile sites in the entire North Korean territory within striking distance.
China on Wednesday called for the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula, even as reports emerged that South Korea was deploying a new cruise missile, the carrier for which was provided by China. This new missile is capable of hitting targets anywhere in North Korea.
The military has deployed a cruise missile with the world's best level precision and hitting capacity, which is capable of immediately hitting anywhere in North Korea and was independently developed.
We hope that all parties involved can remain calm, continue to be committed to the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula and work together to maintain the peace and stability in the region.
North Korea demanded on Thursday that South Korea apologize for what it calls insults during major anniversary festivities or face a sacred war, as Seoul unveiled a new missile to deter its neighbor. Regional tensions have risen since Pyongyang went ahead with a long-range rocket launch last Friday, defying international calls to desist. The North also let go of an agreement to allow back inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency. That followed a US decision in response to the rocket launch it says was a disguised long-range missile test to break off a deal earlier this year to provide the impoverished state with food and aid.
The new young leadership of North Korea has a very stark choice. They need to take a hard look at their policies, stop the provocative action, open to the rest of the world, work to educate their people, feed their people, put their people first ahead of their ambitions to be a nuclear power.
Pyongyang called the US move a hostile act and said it was no longer bound by its February 29 agreement with Washington, dashing any hopes that new leader Kim Jong-un would soften a foreign policy that has for years been based on the threat of an atomic arsenal to leverage concessions out of regional powers. The UN Sanctions Committee now has 2 weeks to come up with further measures against North Korea. The Security Council has already imposed tough sanctions on North Korea after rocket launches in 2006 and 2009. While South Korea added a cruise missile to its arsenal, the reclusive North is widely expected to follow a pattern it set in 2009 with a successive missile and nuclear test by detonating an atomic device in coming weeks, possibly a device using highly enriched uranium for the first time.
While North Korea suffered embarrassment after the failed rocket launch, India announced the successful test launch of the Agni 5, a new nuclear-capable missile that would give it the capability of striking the major Chinese cities of Beijing and Shanghai for the first time. Indian officials hailed the successful launch as a major boost to the country's efforts to counter China's regional dominance and become a respected world power in its own right.
My heartiest congratulations to all scientists of DRDO. Thank you.
The Indian scientific community basked in the glory of the successful test firing of a nuclear-capable missile that can reach Beijing and Eastern Europe, thrusting the emerging Asian power into an elite club of nations with proven intercontinental nuclear weapons capabilities.
In terms of military capability, the deterrent capability is very, very important because of our neighborhood and also the threat perception today. So it's a very important step in terms of strengthening our strategic defense.
The rocket, with a range of more than 5,000 kilometers, blasted through clouds from an island off India's east coast on Thursday. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh congratulated the defense scientists who developed the missile that aims to propel India into the elite club.
The successful launch of Agni 5 missile is a tribute to the sophistications and commitment to national causes on the part of India's scientific and technological community.
This is the first time India has produced a missile that has brought China within its range, and it is being considered a big deterrent capability.
It would be misleading to suggest that because of one test, India has now acquired parity with China. I don't think that is a valid assessment or conclusion. India's deterrent profile will become more credible when the Agni is inducted into the Strategic Forces Command.
Reacting on this development, China played down the missile threat from Agni 5.
China and India are large developing nations. We are not competitors but partners. We believe that both sides should cherish the hard-won good state of affairs at present and work hard to uphold friendly strategic cooperation to promote joint development and make positive contributions towards maintaining peace and stability in the region.
Preparation for Agni 5 test had gathered momentum after India achieved successful results from the first development trial of Agni 4, which has a strike range of more than 3,500 kilometers from the same launch pad on November 15, 2011. In another big development, the siege in the Afghan capital ended about 18 hours after the Taliban launched the assault. Afghanistan's President Hamid Karzai linked Sunday's militant attacks to intelligence failures, especially on NATO's part. Meanwhile, the United States and its NATO allies are readying plans to pull away from the front lines in Afghanistan next year as Barack Obama and fellow leaders try to show that the unpopular war is ending.
Heavy street fighting between militants and security forces in the center of the Afghan capital, Kabul, ended on Monday after 18 hours of gunfire, rocket attacks and explosions.
Our Afghan forces, by their efforts, bravery and sacrifice, killed all of the insurgents.
The attacks in Kabul drew criticism from Afghan President Hamid Karzai on Tuesday for prolonging a foreign presence in the country.
You did nothing for Islam. You didn't work for Afghanistan's independence, and you didn't work for its people, freedom and development. You worked to prolong a foreign presence in Afghanistan.
A day before, Karzai criticized NATO for its lack of intel, calling it a failure. Speaking at a news conference in Brazil, US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton expressed support for the international body and optimism for the situation on the ground.
We are going to stand with the people and the government of Afghanistan. We are going to continue to work with the Afghan National Security Forces along with our NATO ISAF partners. And we believe, and we have evidence of this, that the insurgency is failing despite their ability to launch spectacular attacks from time to time.
NATO countries sought to narrow their differences on how to fund Afghanistan after foreign combat troops leave at the end of 2014, aiming for an agreement next month as more allies prepare to bring their forces back early.
We will continue to support the Afghan security forces also beyond 2014. We will continue a training mission and we will support financially. We must make sure we maintain the gains made with so much investment in lives and resources.
NATO defense and foreign affairs ministers are meeting for 2 days in Brussels to prepare for the Chicago summit.
Time for a very short break here. Up next, we take you to the red carpet premiere of a documentary about Bob Marley's life and music. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Let's now take a look at some of the other international news in our next report.
A series of quick-fire coordinated bomb attacks across Iraq has killed at least 18 and wounded dozens. Extremists launched 9 attacks in Baghdad and in northern Iraq in Kirkuk, Dibis and Taji. At least 71 people were wounded in the rapid-fire explosions that unfolded over an hour and 15 minutes. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attacks, but Baghdad military command spokesperson said they resembled those carried out by Al-Qaeda. Video footage from a social media website showed shelling in the Homs district of Khalidiyah on Thursday. 22 people were killed in Syria on Wednesday, including 13 civilians, during shelling in Homs. Syria pledged that it would cease using heavy weapons against what it calls foreign-backed terrorists who have killed 2,600 soldiers and police. Meanwhile, Syria and the United Nations signed an agreement on Thursday on the terms of a ceasefire monitoring mission. Confessed mass killer Anders Behring Breivik testified Thursday that he had planned to capture and decapitate former Norwegian Prime Minister Gro Harlem Brundtland during a shooting massacre on Utøya Island. Breivik said his plan was to film the beheading and post the video on the internet. Brundtland had already left the Labour Party's youth camp on Utøya when Breivik arrived on June 22 after setting off a bomb in Oslo that killed 8 people. Soil from the spot where Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated in 1948 has been sold at an auction in England for $16,000. The items belonging to Gandhi went under the hammer on Tuesday at British auction house Morlocks at Ludlow Racecourse in Shropshire. Other memorabilia included a pair of his rounded rimmed glasses, a wooden charkha and some letters.
Now gear up, as our next segment is all about bringing you up to speed with the latest from the sports world. Here's all the sports action. Security forces fired stun grenades on Wednesday at anti-government protesters who swarmed into a cultural exhibition for Bahrain's Formula One race, setting off street battles and sending visitors fleeing for cover. It was a blow to the Gulf nation's efforts to protect stability, returning to the Grand Prix circuit a year after the race was cancelled because of the unrest. The demonstration was the most direct attempt by protesters to bring their demands into events linked to Sunday's race, Bahrain's top international showcase. The resumption of the top-level auto race is being touted by Bahrain's rulers as a sign they have the upper hand after 14 months of clashes and crackdowns. Defending champion Rafael Nadal reached the Monte Carlo Masters third round after beating Finland's Jarkko Nieminen 6-4, 6-3 on Wednesday in the season's first big clay court tournament. Spaniard Nadal, who's chasing a record 8th consecutive victory in Monte Carlo, resumed full training last week after a right knee injury forced him to pull out of his semi-final clash with Andy Murray in Miami. He showed no signs of the problem as he recorded his 40th win at the chic venue by the glittering Mediterranean, where he has been unbeaten since 2005. Nadal wowed the crowd as he hit some dramatic forehand passes when Nieminen, 48th in the world, came to the net. Barcelona coach Pep Guardiola and Chelsea counterpart Roberto Di Matteo agreed that their Champions League semi-final was evenly poised after holders Barca lost 1-0 in the first leg at Stamford Bridge on Wednesday. Didier Drogba scored late in the first half and Chelsea mixed luck with resolute defence to keep free-scoring Lionel Messi in check and defeat the current European champions. The Spaniards had 24 attempts on target compared to 1 by the hosts, but Ivorian Drogba made the most of his sight of goal when he fired low and hard past Barca goalkeeper Victor Valdés 2 minutes into stoppage time at the end of the first half. The defeat was only Barcelona's third loss in 63 games this season, and they have now failed to beat Chelsea in the last 6 matches against them, and the Londoners are now unbeaten in 14 matches, home and away against Spanish opposition. Soccer fans gathered outside a church in Bergamo on Thursday to pay their last respects to Mario Morosini, the Livorno player who died during the Serie B game on Thursday. Outside the church in his hometown hung hundreds of Italian soccer team scarves along with floral tributes and banners. Thousands of people attended the funeral after the shocking news of the player's death. Italian medical experts said earlier in the week more tests would be needed to find the exact cause of the death of the 25-year-old Morosini. His death prompted the Soccer Federation to suspend all professional matches over the weekend. After all the sports action, it's time to sit back and enjoy all the very latest from showbiz. Catch the news about your favorite stars in the Entertainment Wrap.
Best known for his innovations in technology and philanthropic accomplishments, Bill Gates will now have colorful illustrations to illustrate his life. The graphic novel, called Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft, is about the career of the well-renowned tech entrepreneur and will hit shelves at the end of April. The comic book will shed light on the events that have shaped his success and led to his legion of devoted followers. In addition, the book will highlight his trajectory into the technology industry and give a glimpse into his personal life. The comic book was created by Blue Water Productions, the same company who has launched comic books featuring the lives of legendary visionaries such as Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg and Apple founder Steve Jobs. The diverse appeal of reggae artist Bob Marley's music was evident on Tuesday, where the red carpet premiere for Marley, a documentary about his life and music, drew celebrities from Snoop Dogg to Jane Fonda to Kenny Chesney. Members of the Marley clan, sons Ziggy, Robbie and Rohan, were also in attendance at the screening, held at the ArcLight Panorama Dome in Hollywood. For Ziggy Marley, who handpicked McDonald to make the film, the timeless appeal of his father's music as well as the messages of peace and justice hidden within his songs transcend borders. Marley, whose many hits with Bob Marley and the Wailers included No Woman, No Cry and Redemption Song, popularized reggae to audiences around the world. He died in 1981 at the age of 36 after being diagnosed with malignant melanoma. One of America's veteran television personalities, Dick Clark, has died aged 82. Clark, who presented the long-running music show American Bandstand and an annual New Year's Eve special, suffered a heart attack. ABC's American Bandstand show introduced stars ranging from Buddy Holly to Michael Jackson to Madonna. American Bandstand, the show Dick Clark hosted for 3 decades, paved the way for many up-and-coming stars and inspired other music shows.
That's all from me in this edition of World Panorama. I'll see you same time next week with more world news. For now, I leave you with these stunning visuals from the skies above Pyongyang, which were lit up with a massive firework display to mark the centenary of birth of North Korea's founder, Kim Il-sung. Thanks for watching and have a great day.